I loved Ray Bork, and when he got traded, that was like so great for me. And then I got to see him hoist the cup. What's up, party people, and welcome to the Gaskast. It is episode 11. That's right, I don't have enough fingers to get through this episode. So, we are in week 3 of the podcast, and tomorrow is the start of the World Series. Kansas City will be taking on New York. I'm pretty certain this year's Kansas City's year. I am someone who is a sports fan, but I don't get into sports like a lot of people, okay? I don't know what it is with sports fanaticism that just drives guys to be as crazy as they get. And we aren't even the worst, okay? But it's like, living in Vancouver, we have the Vancouver Canucks, which, as someone who does stand-up comedy, I constantly watch comics talk about the Vancouver Canucks and joke about how atrocious they can be. Most notably, I believe a few people make references to the Canucks being like a girlfriend that doesn't put out. Like, you get there, everyone's naked, and then she just leaves. Is essentially the joke that a couple comics have, which kind of makes sense because they've been to the Stanley Cup Finals like 3 times and never won. I mean, you really have to look. It's like back to the Vancouver Millionaires before a team from Vancouver's won the Stanley Cup, and back then that was the Stanley Cup Challenge. But that's neither here nor there. It is something that astounds me. As you see behind me is my team of choice, the Colorado Avalanche. It's a jersey that I wore as a kid, and doesn't fit me anymore. I mean, I could probably throw it on, but it'd be way too small. So, my problem with fanaticism is the fact that how crazy people get when they're watching a game. Now, I love the Avalanche, not really for the Avalanche. I like them because of Patrick Waugh was my favorite goaltender. Joe Sakic was like one of my favorite forward. Him and Peter Forsberg, like two of my dudes, you know. I loved Ray Bork, and when he got traded, that was like so great for me. And then I got to see him hoist the cup. I mean, that's cool. The personal stories are what do it for me in sports. It has nothing to do with the teams. I mean, everyone always goes like, you got to go with the team. I don't think you do. I think it's a lot better to just invest in people and follow their career, because even if they don't win it, you get to see someone go through a whole motion and a whole, 14, 15-year story, basically, of watching a specific guy. That's what interests me. I mean, the number of times I've seen grown men cry because a team loses, I mean, come on. I'm not saying that it's not okay to cry, but I'm just saying, as far as like something like hockey or basketball or something, unless you're on that team and you've lost that game, you don't get to cry, all right? If you work for that team, and I don't mean popcorn vendors, all right? You don't get to cry if you're selling popcorn or 50-50. No, you get to cry if you're like the general manager. You put all this hard work into it. It's just crazy to me that that's kind of what we do, you know? So when it comes to sports, I think realistically, you follow one player. Follow a few players, not just one. So right now, hockey-wise, I like Sidney Crosby. I like Jonathan Toews. I like a lot of the big stars, but there's a couple like mid-range guys that I follow their career just to see what happens. And I'd rather be invested in that story than follow some team and get my heart broken at the end of the year. Speaking of which, as I mentioned, the World Series starts tomorrow. And, I watched Toronto lose, and I'm a big Blue Jays fan, being a Canadian. And watching them lose in the way they did was heartbreaking. but I never really got that upset. I watched it happen, and there was a point where I was like, that's bullshit. And then the game ended, and I went on with my life. That's what you got to do. Follow a player's career. It's more fun to watch than just constantly getting your heart ripped out by being a fan of a shitty team. Or be a fan of a great team and then just ride that wave like my buddy Nick from high school. He was a huge fan of like the Red Wings and the Patriots when they were both huge teams. He just bandwagon jumps. Yeah, that guy does. So, yeah, that's my piece of advice. If you're going to be a sports fanatic, be a fan of a player rather than a team. You won't get your heart ripped out as often. That's it for today's episode. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you Tuesday at the start of the World Series. But I'll be off playing Halo. I will have a podcast ready to go. So I think that's it for this episode. Please do me a favor. Click right there to subscribe and comment below. Have yourselves a great day.